Okay, good afternoon, everyone. It is 3:34 p.m. I'm calling this meeting of the Maple Broadband Executive Committee to order for the 8th of April, 2026. So the first item on the agenda is to approve the agenda, and our chair and treasurer are have both indicated they're going to be late to this meeting. So accordingly, I'm going to suggest that we change the order of operations so that we'll start with the updates. Actually, no. So after the executive director report, I'd like to move updates next, and then calls for decision and key discussions, and then we'll put the executive sessions at the end in reverse order. So essentially, we're going to go through the agenda for bottom to top as opposed to from top to bottom. So there we go. So that's my suggestion. Would someone like to make a motion to formalize that?
So moved.
Okay, it sounds like a motion in a second. Would anyone like to make any other changes to the agenda?
Good heavens,
hearing none. All in favor of the massively modified agenda, raise your hand or say aye. Okay, great, thank you. So next up is approval of the minutes from March 23rd. So I distributed those along with the original agenda. You've all had a chance to review those minutes. I'll entertain a motion to approve as presented.
So moved.
Okay, second. All right, any edits to the minutes as presented? Nope. Okay, all in favor, raise your hand or say aye. And we have an abstention from Sai.
I'll abstain. Yep.
All right. Okay, great. So the chair, public comments is next. Would anyone like to make a public comment? Okay, hearing none. I'm going to move on to the executive director report. So what have I been busy with? There has been a lot. Some of it has been preparing for the executive sessions for today. I have been, as you all know, we are getting towards the end of wrapping up our ARPA grant obligations. So I had some meetings with all the stakeholders to coordinate that and kick that off. And I've been reviewing the as-built records from WCPT, working with Mission to gather together all of the other documents that need to be submitted into the compilation package for the inspectors. So getting that going. BEAD planning and permitting. We have, I do not actually have a BEAD update later on in the agenda because there wasn't too much going on when I distributed the agenda. So I'll just quickly say now, we had a really wonderful permitting meeting yesterday with the VCBB and their compliance specialists, RSM. So that really helped clarify the roles and responsibilities and timelines. And so that's really all to the good. I think the good news is, I don't need to get into the weeds here, but the good news is that from a NEPA perspective, things can actually move along much faster than my worst case scenario. So our critical path may actually not be NEPA sign off, which is very good news. So next is working with vendors to finalize bills of materials so that we can get to procurement. So as previously mentioned, in order to be able to start work on BEAD, aside from the necessity of having the NEPA go ahead, we need to be able to have our bid packages out for construction and construction oversight. We also need to have all the materials ordered and understand the lead times of those. So we've been working with JSI for many months now on the final bits of detailed design. They have given us a pretty much final bill of materials for the fiber optic cable. I'm working with Vantage Point to understand split out the difference between the BEAD and the non-BEAD portions of the middle mile in Leicester, which shouldn't take them too long. Probably, I'm still waiting for an estimate, but they're on that now. And then we also need to have a discussion around what additional materials, if any, we might want to purchase to use up the rest of our ARPA funds by the end of this year, which is one of the things we'll be discussing in executive session. So that's all going, but until that's all done, we're not putting out an RFQ for the fiber optic cable, and we have some concerns around the lead times of the BABA compliant cable, which is currently required by the NTIA for BEAD. So we're just gonna have to manage that as it comes. Okay. Yep. So I was doing some network and financial analysis in preparation for today. And I had some meetings with Waitsfield and Lynn and Darlene around the reporting of discounts from our LEAF and our soon-to-be launched nonprofit Connect, just to make sure, because Waitsfield has the proper discounts for the customers on the bills, but we need to make sure that they're properly recorded in our accounts. So that's been going well. And I know we have the 2025 audit further down, so we'll get to that. I've also been working with London Middlebury on affordable drop program marketing and continued leaf marketing. Between the last meeting and now, have been working with a bunch of people to get out the requests for proposal for the affordable drop services construction and construction oversight, or services, basically project management. And then finally, more marketing work. So that's a lot of what I have been doing, and a lot of the going forward is really under those categories of continuing to move all those balls forward and getting BEAD kicked off, trying to get the affordable drop program kicked off. As you guys will see on the agenda, we have a discussion item specifically around the the long drop outreach, because our pipeline right now is not where we'd like it to be. So that's it for my executive director report. Hi there, Lynn. Is there any questions on that? Nope. Okay. So Lynn, as you can see, Steve is not here. He's indicated he's going to be late, so he asked that we move the executive sessions to later in the agenda. So I've just finished my executive director report, and I'm going to move into updates, and then we're going to get into the calls for decision and then executive sessions. So under updates, the first one is the Finance Committee. We have scheduled that for the 23rd of April. So we first tentatively scheduled that because we heard from Bonnie that she was close to having draft financials, and there's a couple other items we want to have on there as well. One of which is a review of the audit RFP. So I drafted the audit RFP. I sent it to Lynn and Darlene for feedback. Lynn gave that the thumbs up. So that's ready for review with Finance Committee next. And that moves us into the 2025 audit. So we received draft financials from our auditor 2 days ago, I think, a couple days ago, earlier this week. And we have a meeting tomorrow to be with me, Lynn, and Darlene to be reviewing those and working towards, again, I mean, as expected, the first draft, we're probably going to have questions, maybe some edits and errata. And so we're working towards having a version that we are happy with as the three of us before the Finance Committee on the 23rd. So right now, everything's on schedule to be able to present that to the governing board at the May annual meeting, as we had hoped all along. Anything you want to add to that, Lynn?
No. We're on track.
Great.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So on to the affordability programs. So there have been no changes to LEAF and the affordable drop program this month so far. We're only a week in. So we had 10 on the LEAF at the end of last month. And there are currently, what did I say in my email? I believe there are 12 that are confirmed for the affordable drop program. So that is the status update on those, which will move into the next section around long drop outreach approval when we get there. So the next item then is the parking lot. So there have been a number of changes to the items in the parking lot. There were a lot of updates since the last meeting. So do you guys have any comments or questions on any of those updates or anything on the parking lot you'd like to get into more detail on? Okay. It's fine. Oh dear. Where's my mouse gone? This way. Okay. Back over here. All right. So parking lot. So other updates? I don't have any other updates at this point. Does anyone have any questions about anything that's going on operations-wise? Okay. So hearing none, we're going to move on to the previously labeled section 8, which is calls for decision and key discussions. So I distributed just a couple of hours ago prior to this meeting. So let me back up here. So as you all know, we have the Affordable Drop Program award from the VCBB. Still no grant agreement, but that aside, it's been sitting with the Public Service Department for a while, and at some point it'll come out the other side, I'm sure. Anyway, that aside, it's almost like a running joke at this point. That aside, what we put into our application was an estimate of 168 drops. So like other CUDs, we used a very similar methodology of taking people in the pipeline, assuming that some of them would sign up and a great number of them wouldn't, and having a look at projections of based on the financial model of new areas going into service and the percent of new scouts that wind up needing conduit, and putting together an estimate of how many people we thought would need service. So that was 168. We are sitting at 12. These need to be completed by the end of September of 2026. And it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out that with the current approach to outreach and marketing, we are not going to be anywhere near hitting our targets. And so what I was thinking, again, both from a self-interested standpoint and from an otherwise interested standpoint, is so the source of these funds is ARPA capital projects. There's not a lot of flexibility on what can be spent. The funds need to be spent on a capital project. They need to be spent by date certain. So if we can't make good use of the funds, we should quickly put in a request for a grant amendment to the non-existent grant agreement to the VCBB in order to reduce the amount of our grant and give it to others who could use it. So there's other CUDs that are actually oversubscribed in this program, and we are undersubscribed. So from a self-interested standpoint, before doing something as drastic as that, I wanted to put some more time into marketing, like literally canvassing, like calling the customers that are in our pipeline. Because what have we done up to this point? We've sent multiple emails to people that are in crowd fiber that need conduits. We've done social media marketing. We've done front porch marketing. We have put ads in the Addison Independent. We've put it in our newsletter a couple of times. We've put ads on Facebook and Google. I mean, we've done all of the digital stuff that we can realistically do. Not to say that we're not going to be continuing that, but I feel like we need more. And I saw some nodding heads. So that's where I think I came to this conclusion about early last week. And so it was then that I reached out to London Middlebury, which is our marketing firm. And I also reached out for the purposes of, because under expediency, I checked our procurement policy and I forget what it said. I think it's under $50,000. We don't need to have a formal bid, but we just need to go through a process of getting some competitive costs. So I approached London Middlebury. I also approached Mac Mountain, which is GWI, because they have been doing this sort of thing for at least one other CUD and with some good success as far as I've heard. So I have emailed to you guys the London Middlebury proposal, which is essentially time and materials. They'd be hiring some people on. They've given an estimated budget of up to $30,000, and you have not seen, so I'm going to call up now, you have not seen the proposal from Mac Mountain. I'm going to pull that up now, and hopefully, am I going to be able to move it over to the screen? No, what's going on? There we go. All right. So I can call it the London Middlebury one as well, but you have it in your emails. Mm-hmm. This one, I'm just going to scoot to the bottom line here. So I'm not sharing my screen. Hang on. Share screen. Okay, can you see that? Looks like it's sharing. Yes? Okay, I'll make it bigger. So this one is essentially $4,000 upfront for the phone calling, for the campaign mobilization and the phone calling. And then and they're proposing something where we pay where they would bill on performance to guarantee ROI. So we would only be paying based on the customers that are signed up. So these are two very different proposals. This one I literally just received about an hour before this call. Haven't had a chance to review them fully yet. So I think we're in general agreement we need to do something. We can do one of two things at this point. Either you guys can empower me for up to $30,000 to make my best choice and negotiate with one or both of these, or we can say that we agree in principle and I can do the analysis and bring a recommendation to the governing board meeting on Tuesday. I'm happy either way, but I wanted to get your thoughts.
What funds would we be using in either case?
That's a great question, Nancy. So this is one of the challenges of the situation here. So we have a grant agreement that I know we haven't seen it yet, but we know it's going to look like, and it has milestones based on the number of drops that are installed. And so if we're able to get the drops that we are planning under the affordable drop program, this program should more than be able to pay for the cost of this marketing, but we could also incur the cost of the marketing and not get the customers and not get that. So like money's fungible, like where we charge it on the books is kind of much of a muchness. My preference would be to charge it to the pre-construction grant, because that money we know has to be spent. And then assuming we are successful with the drops, then it's a fixed amount sub-award and the money can be used on anything. So that would be my accounting recommendation of what to do. Steve, go ahead.
I was just checking on this, Ellie. Does your recollection the same as mine that we began construction in 2023? It looks like I took a look at Cornwall. It looks like we started work in Cornwall in 2023, built out some of GoNetspeed territory during that period. And then moving into 2024, we built out Virgin's shelter. So is that sound about right? I mean, are we in the same neighborhood of that? We've basically been offering service since 2023?
That was 22, actually, is when we first launched the first couple of miles in Cornwall, the first 35 or something like that, 0.7 miles. The first 1A went live in January of 23, and then we had a lot of the rest of phase 1 started to go. And then Virgin's went live in 24.
Right. So that was give or take 3 years ago. So, CrowdFiber came up at around that time, and people might have signed up as early as 2023 for service and said, nope, sorry, I can't afford buried conduit, and they moved on to other options. So my preliminary conclusion is there have been what I'm guessing is a substantial number of subscribers that have been on that list for years, and if I were one of them, I would be unwilling to wait. I could not wait forever, and I'd want to take action. I think the other part of it that concerns me is that, at least maybe more broadly, but at least in the case of GoNetspeed, those are people in those towns. They were previously subscribed to GoNetspeed, and when they signed up for GoNetspeed, I'm assuming GoNetspeed could have extended service to those subscribers following the existing pathway that had been in place for years. So it would be easy for them to sign up for service, and they would have loved to go with Maple Broadband, but if they could get service in a couple months, I'm guessing they probably chose to do that instead. So I think kind of my concern is that there may be a lot of subscribers that have long since moved on and may not any longer be interested in our proposal. I think the only thing I saw when I briefly looked at some of the suggestions, which might make a difference, is the idea of eliminating installation fee as part of the process. I think that could change things, but honestly, I don't know that part, and I think that's maybe a separate discussion. So overall, there may be a persuasive argument for us to abandon the long drop program altogether, because we're going to spend a bunch of money with London Middlebury, and they're going to come up relatively empty-handed. That could happen. So I think we need to kind of include that factor in our thoughts.
Yeah, I think that's a great point, Steve, and that's one of the reasons that I want to have the outbound calling be the very first thing that's done here, because we have people in our pipeline I'm of the same view as you, that I don't really, I don't think it's a great practice to leave people as open, uncanceled orders in our pipeline for multiple years. And so I think it's great to have someone do outbound calling to see if they're still interested, but that's really a sales call and not a customer service call. So we figure out how we want to handle these things more proactively going forward so we don't wind up with this. So I think that's, of the number of people in CrowdFiber, which is like 160 something, a lot of them are probably not interested anymore. And it would be great to be able to determine, are they interested, yes or no, and be able to make a decision one way or the other. That said, I mean, the canvassing wouldn't be necessarily to go to those addresses, but to go to every other address that's been designed or initially eyeballed by Vantage Point as being buried or partially buried, and go knock on the door and say, hey, are you aware that there's a limited time program here? Right. So that's really the point. Is not, it's like maybe 5 to 10% of it, of the effort is going through and doing calls to people that expressed interest ranging from several years ago to several months ago. And the other part that hopefully would be more fruitful is going and knocking on doors, people who may not even realize Maple Broadband's around. And if you recall, Adam's not here, but Adam has for a long time actually been advocating for door-to-door canvassing full stop, not only to people who have buried service, but I think that this is something that we've anyway talked about for a long time and have wanted to do. So why not use this program and the urgency around it to see how it goes and cut our teeth? And to your other point about not spending money, that's what's potentially interesting about the Mac Mountain approach, where we only pay them based on customers that get signed up. Because if they sign someone up for the long drop program, that's a win. It's worth paying for. Nancy.
Well, I'd like to make a motion that we authorize you to review the two proposals and choose one that you think will work best for Maple Broadband up to $30,000.
I'll second that.
Okay. Is there any discussion?
Yeah. So the canvassing you're describing is not canvassing exclusively to former people that signed up for CrowdFiber. It's
absolutely
the
not.
Entire community that may. And what's the scope? Is it exclusive to our existing territory? Is it just our southern territory and our northern territory that we currently have? Is that the scope?
Well, it would be anyone that has anyone that we've not already scouted and that has a portion of the drop that's designed by Vantage Point as being buried, either a portion of or the entirety of. How big that list is, I don't know. Lucas can generate the list, but I haven't wanted to. I've had him on some more time-critical topics than this.
What does scouting have to do? What does scouting have to do with it? I don't understand.
Well, because there's a time limit on these funds, we want to prioritize the canvassers going to households where we believe there's a need for conduit versus households that could be connected aerially. If we're really successful at it, we may decide to extend the scope to those that we think could be connected aerially.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Is there any more discussion? Okay. All in favor of the motion on the floor, raise your hand or say aye. All right, that is unanimous. Thank you. Okay, back to here. Okay, so okay, now another item under this is related. So I would like to propose that we waive the installation fee for any new installation through the end of September of 2026. The reason being that it is much easier from a consumer marketing standpoint to say your installation is free than the extra costs are free, but you still have to pay our standard installation fee. That's a lot of words. People don't really understand. And as far as we know, our competitors are also offering free installations. So just as part of, and then I didn't want to have non-parity between people who were having buried service, giving them a free installation, and then other people. And also, I think in general, we could probably use more subscribers on our network. So I thought, why not? Let's do this for a limited time basis, specifically to support the Affordable Drop Program. And not forever, but let's do it through the end of the Affordable Drop Program, essentially. So this came up on my call with London Middlebury yesterday. So the total, if I take the number of installations we've had per month for the last couple of months times the number of months, we're talking about a $10,000. It could be up to $15,000, but that would be the potential impact on the finances.
So for purpose of context, we already pay WCBT a substantial amount of money for every install. And so when we collect $150 for each install, it's just it's a drop in the bucket. We're already paying a lot of money for those installations. And the fact that we waive that amount, that minimal amount, it's not that significant in the scheme of things. Ellie, is my guess is if things go as we have previously planned, BEAD bead construction probably won't start until later than September. If it starts, it'll maybe start in September, but that's pretty far out and there's a lot more to do, don't you think?
Well, actually, Steve, the news that the main takeaway for me from that permitting call that we had yesterday with RSM is that we could get our NEPA sign off as early as June. Now, when we get the materials is a whole other question, and that depends on the availability of BABA compliant cable and or an NTIA waiver on the BABA compliant cable. So it could be July, it could be September, it could be next year, depending on the cable story. So we don't know. And that does play into the ARPA analysis later on that we'll talk about in executive session. But at this point, we kind of need to consider that the options could range from really soon to really not
Hardly at
soon.
all.
Yeah, so when
Yeah.
we waive fees for the long draw program till September, it's possible that those waivers may also apply to new subscribers as a result of the bead installation.
Yep, they might, although I think it's probably fairly unlikely that we would kick off in July and have new service areas turned up by the end of September, just based on past records. I mean,
Yeah.
it could, but again, I would argue that's not a bad problem to have. And we wouldn't necessarily give a time limit that we announce to the public. This would be more, I mean, I know this is a public meeting, but I think for planning purposes, it's, we're waiving the installation fee until we decide we're not going to waive the installation fee.
Gwen, if I may ask, what's the impact on our business plan to do this?
Did you ask Lynn or are you asking me?
Lynn? Well, maybe Ellie. Okay, I'll ask either one of you.
Well, it's about again, depending on how many installations we have, it could be a $10,000 to $15,000 impact, maybe more if we get a lot of new customers. And so in general, to your point, Steve, it takes us about 2 to 3 years to recover the CapEx on a new drop. And so it's negative for the first couple of years and then long-term positive.
Okay, I move we proceed with waiving the installation fee until what, the 1st of September?
I would say, yeah, well, let's waive it for all installations through the end of September, and then or until I come back to you and suggest that we lift that.
Right. Okay. So I move that we waive installation fees for all new subscribers until the end of September. Is there a second?
Okay. Any further discussion? Okay. All in favor, raise your hand or say aye. Okay. That is great. That's it for 8A, conflict of interest policy. Shannon, would you like to take this one over?
Sure. So also in your packet, down below the parking lot, Ellie has included the draft policy in two formats. The first one basically was looking at what we have in force and also looking at the one that I had mentioned last month, I think, that came out of Addison County Regional Planning Commission. I made it more appropriate for what we are doing, changed the citations a little bit. The one in force, there's one citation that doesn't exist anymore. But anyway, made it fairly small, fairly easy to read. There is a sign off because we talked about maybe having a sign off at the executive committee level, but not on the governing board level. So, we could create two different versions of this if you want. And then after that, based on comments from Zapata, I basically just took the policy above and ran it through an AI, and got the summary that you see that's a one pager. Happy to do whatever you want, take any comments, go with it, throw it away, whatever.
Well, let's not throw it away.
Well, it is better than, in my opinion, it's better than the one we have in force, which has a lot of stuff, references to legislative body, which we do not have. That one actually, when I thought about it and started reading it, it's like, oh, that's like the municipal conflict of interest policy that is common in a lot of municipalities. But again, it has stuff in there that we don't need, so I stripped it out and simplified things.
So if we want to adopt it, what is our next step, Shannon?
We can adopt it as an EC. We don't need to have the governing board adopt it, although, it might be good to let them know the details and say, we've adopted this and here it is. And if there's blowback, then we can deal with that.
Won't be
And
blowback.
yeah, exactly. So, it's up to you guys if we want to adopt it as is. If there are any changes you'd like to make, now's the time.
I think it's ready to be adopted, and I would say we would take off the word draft at the front and put a
Mhm.
date on the bottom,
Yep.
as a on the
As a
footer,
policy. Yep.
and then I don't know how we deal with the signing. I'm sure there's going to be some kind of ceremony with champagne, but do we, when we show it to the governing board, we just leave off the last page, I guess, huh?
Exactly. I'd make the sign off sheet maybe a different document.
Yeah,
I put it all together here for us just for ease of use, but I'd make that a separate document just for the EC to sign off on. If you want to have us sign off on it. But for the governing board, yeah, I would just make it the 3 pages.
yep.
I think this is not kind of precedent setting here. I believe a lot of organizations in Vermont have a similar type of policy. Is it, we have to renew it every year? Is that true?
We could or we could not. It's I definitely when somebody joins, you'd want to do it. I think we as as the executive committee, we might want to review it once a year and see, do we want to make any changes to it? But I don't think we'd have to force everybody to do a new one every year. I would say, we would review it when somebody new joins, they're presented with it so that they're aware of it. But beyond that, I think it's fine.
Well, I haven't read it yet. I'm all in favor of it, but I'm a little reluctant to agree that we should just all do this until at least,
Okay.
at least I have read it. Maybe everyone, I don't know who else has read it, but I think what makes a lot of sense is that we just task ourselves with reviewing it and maybe feed any comments back to Shannon in the next few days with an objective to finalize on it at our next executive committee meeting. And then at that point, we'll go to town on it. Does that make sense?
It's fine with me.
Sounds good to me.
Yep.
Okie dokie. There you go.
Thanks, Shannon.
Thank you,
Okay.
Shannon. Thanks
Yes,
so
thank you,
much.
Shannon, for doing the heavy lifting on that. Okay, great. All right, so I think now the next item on the agenda is to go into executive session to discuss business strategy. Steve, would you do the honors?
Yes, ma'am. One moment. I move to find that general public knowledge regarding Maple Broadband's business strategy would clearly place us at a substantial disadvantage because it risks disclosure of our activities if they were to be communicated to the public. Is there a second? A second from Cy. All in favor of that motion, raise your hand or say aye. So that's everyone. I move that we enter into executive session to discuss business strategy under Title I, Section 313, subsection A of Vermont statutes. Is there a second? We have a second from Nancy. All in favor, raise your hand or say aye. Any opposed? Obviously not. That's everybody, isn't it? Okay, it's passed. Thank you.